last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Dark Matters Radio. Dark Matters Radio, of course, is hosted by me, your host, Don Ecker, and it's brought to you courtesy of KGRA, your contact point to all those darkened spots out there in the ether. Tonight, once again.
Out, dark spot.
Yeah, I'm bringing them back. You got to be one of my favorite guests, Dr. John Brandenburg.
John, you do me great honor. Thank you.
I know I do. And I'm looking for that check, pal. Looking for that check. Anyway, I was talking to John a few weeks ago, and he had some very interesting information that he brought back. He's been working on, of course, you know, John was the individual that discovered what can only be one, possibly two artificial nuclear detonations that took place on our sister planet Mars, apparently a very long time ago, but he discovered something else recently that was very, very interesting. So, John, let's take it from the very start. For those people that may be tuning in and have not heard you on the show before, tell us what you discovered on Mars. And hey, let's start at the beginning. What caused you to look there for this particular thing to begin with?
Well, I worked for more than 9.5 years at 2 government nuclear weapons labs. So I didn't work directly on nuclear weapons. I worked on laser fusion, which is little miniature hydrogen bombs, but also the people who worked on hydrogen bombs and things like that were just always down the hall from me. So I picked up a lot of kind of informal knowledge about it. And we're talking, back in the 80s, late 70s, 80s. So quite a long time ago. So now we're investigating Mars, finally in 1984. Of course, we're investigating the space on Mars, the pyramid nearby it.
Discovered by the Viking probes?
Yeah, right, 1976. And the Vikings landed 2 landers on Mars, and they sampled the atmosphere. And you got to understand that the study of nuclear isotopes is very, very important to understanding planetary science. The mainstream belief of scientists is that this whole solar system began with a big supernova explosion. Big, looked like a giant hydrogen bomb explosion. And then the planets condensed out of that gas that was left over from that explosion. So that's mainstream science. Now, as it turns out, the solar system would not have satisfied OSHA requirements back in those days. Everything was radioactive. And gradually the radioactivity decayed away, and the planet started sustaining life. And I say planets, and they left then stable isotopes. Now you can do forensics on those isotopes, just like if somebody shoots somebody in an apartment, you can actually, if the powder burns on the body or on the walls, you can figure out what type of gun it was, what kind of gunpowder it used, et cetera, et cetera. So you can do forensics on the isotopes from a nuclear explosion to figure out how the explosion worked, what was in it, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we set off a whole bunch of nukes on Earth, and then we fly airplanes through the mushroom clouds to sample the gases and look at the isotopes afterwards. So we had a pretty good idea of what the residues, nuclear residues from a hydrogen bomb explosion look like. So I'm working at Sandia Labs and simultaneously investigating Mars. And I showed the xenon, which is the gas they use in flash bulbs for cameras. I showed the isotopes of xenon to somebody who was interested in sampling of the atmosphere after nuclear tests, like for when North Korea claims it sets off a nuclear explosion, etc. And their immediate reaction was somebody had nuked Mars. At the time, I did not understand what it was they were reacting to, but gradually over the years, I figured out that it was the xenon-129. There's a spike in isotopes abundance at xenon-129.
Okay, now let's stop a second. Xenon-129. Is that something that is only produced from an atomic detonation?
No, you can produce it other ways. Generally, though, the source of it on Earth in the nuclear explosions is from the direct nuclear reactions of the hydrogen bomb. And it's also produced one other place. It's produced in supernovas, which are, an explosion of a supernova is very similar to the explosion of a hydrogen bomb. Physics is very similar.
A hydrogen bomb as opposed to a regular run-of-the-mill atomic bomb like we dropped on Hiroshima or Nagasaki, right?
Right. I mean, you get so much more performance out of the hydrogen reaction in a bomb than you can from just straight uranium or plutonium in a simple atomic bomb, that everybody goes to hydrogen reactions. That's why the nuclear arsenals all are full of hydrogen bombs rather than just simple atomic bombs.
Okay.
So what happens is that a hydrogen bomb goes off and it produces a characteristic pattern of isotopes. And one of the features of that is it produces a lot more xenon-129 than xenon-132. Xenon-129 and 132 in the Earth's normal atmosphere are balanced. It's about 1-to-1 abundance, atom per atom. However, in the residue from a hydrogen bomb and also from a supernova, xenon-129 is 4 or 5 times larger than the xenon-132. So that's your smoking gun, literally.
Well, now
is
xenon-132 another byproduct of a hydrogen detonation?
It's produced in smaller amounts, and you can get xenon-132 from just a nuclear reactor.
Okay.
A slow burn. Or if you have uranium deposits and drill down into them and then sample the gases, you'll get a lot of xenon-132, but not 129, as it turns out. So it gives you a differentiator between intense, high energy explosion, nuclear reactions, and just the slow burn like a regular nuclear reactor, or just the natural decay of uranium in nature.
But
those produce the xenon 132.
Xenon 129 is definitely, though, I want to get this on the record, a byproduct of other than a supernova. And if we were dealing with a supernova, we wouldn't be here. But Xenon 129 is definitely from an artificial detonation, correct?
Right.
Okay, so
there's no other known process.
Just by that very definition that it is artificial, that presupposes it had to come from another civilization out there, not from here, correct?
Correct.
So if nothing else,
we have two signs of intelligent activity on Mars. One was the big base and the pyramid and things like that at Cydonia Mensa, those pictures, and then also the Xenon 129 in the gases that they sampled. Now, the U.S. government, Uncle Sammy, when they landed on Mars in 1976, they sampled the atmosphere immediately. The xenon stood out like a sore thumb. Of course, they already had pictures of the pyramid and the face. So the U.S. government has known about this situation since 1976.
So why are they... Now, this is a rhetorical question, of course.
Sure.
But why would they still be, and not so much actually today as then, but why did they lie about it, John?
Well, we're in the middle of the Cold War, and the government, I believe, was probably in shock initially when they found all of this. They had expected, based on the writings of Wernher von Braun and some other people in the space program, they had expected, and of course the documents that you found from the, I think it was the RAND Corporation study?
Brookings.
Oh, Brookings. Yes, so you found the Brookings study where they basically said, yeah, well, if we go snooping around the solar system, we're bound to find signs of intelligent life. And we found it on Mars. The only so they expected maybe a dead civilization based on Mars pyramid. What they did not expect was nuclear weapons signature in the atmosphere.
Now the next big
so they were
question,
kind of in shock, probably. What's that?
The next big question. Okay, this is the next big question, and this is especially directed at those people who may not be aware of this series of events that you've detailed actually brilliantly, John, for years. But the next big question, was it a Martian H-bomb or maybe someone else?
Well, we can't be sure until we send, we have American boots on the ground up there on Mars. We have to send a team of investigators up there to figure out what actually happened.
But you suspected a long time that it was from an external source.
Yes. I've been working on this problem for 30 years with a lot of other people. None of us have seen anything on Mars in any of the pictures that suggested an advanced civilization. It looks like it was primitive. The Mayans, the Old Kingdom Egypt, etc., etc. We're talking people who build big pyramids and carve giant faces like a lot of primitive people on Earth did.
But
then
yet
you find
here
what
is some.
looks like the residues.
Let
What's
me
that?
let me get a little squirrelier. Okay.
Sure.
When we're talking
You're
about
good
this,
at that, Don.
yes, I am. let me get a little squirrely here. We
Sure.
also, as human beings on planet Earth, also created huge monuments
Yes, we
over
did.
thousands and thousands of years. Monuments like the pyramids, monuments like the Sphinx, monuments around the globe, pyramids literally all through the globe. A lot of people are not aware. When they hear pyramids, they automatically think of Egypt. But my God,
Sure.
we've got pyramids in Central America. We've got pyramids in South America. We've got pyramids in Eastern Europe.
Yes.
And we've got pyramids in China and even Japan. Now, the bottom line, could there be, even though we're probably separated by vast amounts of time, could there be a connection?
You know me that I'm not a really I'm a politically conservative guy, but I'm not a really conservative scientist. I'm willing to make bold guesses and publish them. But in this case, this stuff on Mars looks like it's hundreds of millions of years old. It looks like there's just a really big time separation between what happened on Mars in terms of intelligent activity and the human race on Earth. I just calls them as I see them. And
sure.
So it's a peculiar thing that we would end up with people who look like us on Mars, even though they're hundreds of millions of years before anything like human beings were on Earth. But the universe is full of weird stuff.
Well, here's a real odd thing that we human beings have discovered, that about the time frame that you're theorizing that this event happened on Mars, Earth also experienced one of its several extinction events.
Yes, the Great Permian extinction.
Exactly. And we have discovered, actually, if we count them all up, a hell of a lot of Mars rocks that have made it here to planet
Earth. Yes, we have.
Could there be a connection there, John?
That is certainly possible. If you set off, if the theory I proposed is correct, the hydrogen bombs that went off on Mars were of such great power. They just stripped away the entire atmosphere on the planet. They made Mars, from a planet like Earth, into what it is now. And undoubtedly, a lot of stuff, rocks and debris, were blown to Earth.
Which might have included
the Great Permian extinction, by the way, killed off everything in the oceans. The thing the asteroid that impacted and killed all the dinosaurs, it hardly affected the oceans at all. But the Great Permian extinction almost made Earth into another Mars. So it's as if somebody, just to have a warm feeling, nuked Mars and then proceeded to Earth and nuked it too, just in case.
Do you think we were also nuked?
Not sure. Here's the other problem. Uncle Sammy has gotten involved heavily in this, as I'm going to explain. And so that if scientists found evidence for big nuclear explosions on Earth about the same time as they happened on Mars, like say the Permian extinction, they would not talk about it. they would get a tap on the shoulder saying, Dr. Jones, please come with us. We know what you found. Please don't talk about it to anybody. And 99% of scientists that I work with would immediately, and I myself, if somebody in trench coat told me, Dr. Brandenburg, we know what you found on Mars, please don't talk about it, I would comply because I'm a patriotic citizen. But that's not what happened to me. They let me know that they knew what we were investigating, but they never stopped us from investigating or asked us to stop. Now, if they found evidence for a similar event on Earth, would they want to talk about it? Probably not. Too close to home.
Okay, why? Because we're talking about hundreds of millions of years ago.
Well, basically, Don, what I found out during the kind of late 80s was that Mars was a national security site and that the Mars investigation was really part of the UFO cover-up. It was a sideshow.
Well, now, I've got a very interesting story about Mars, and this goes back to circa 1988, 1989. Prior to his death, I was very good friends with Zecharia Sitchin. Now, Sitchin is the man that created a series of books that are collectively known as the Earth Chronicle series. He was a Sumerian linguist. Now, even though I personally am convinced that human civilization goes well beyond and way back before the Sumerians blossomed on the plains of Mesopotamia approximately 6,000 years ago, I think they were basically refugees that escaped a planet-wide catastrophic event. We've talked about that on this show before. But be that as it may, 6,000 years ago, the Sumerians popped up with fully developed civilization. They had the civilization arts, the civilian arts of government, of agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, medicine. I mean, that's always been a mystery on how those people just popped up seemingly out of nowhere with a full-blown...
big cities, too.
Yeah, exactly. Full-blown, but those people, Sitchin detailed their own accounts of having been in contact with a group of beings they regarded as gods called the Anunnaki. Now, he wrote a series of books, and around 88 or 89, one of his books, Genesis Revisited. I got a copy of that. I read it like I did all his books, cover to cover. And in there, John, was where I discovered the story that came out, and I was able to break on television and in the pages of UFO magazine the story of Phobos 2, Phobos 1.
Oh, right.
The joint NASA Glavcosmos operation to go to Mars then. And a lot of people in the West were not aware of that, but the first Phobos probe, they lost. It disappeared. And the second one finally got to Mars.
They switched it off by accident, they claim.
Well, they did something. The second one got to Mars, and it photographed a stupendously huge object off of the Martian moon Phobos, what appears to be a spacefaring vessel 15 and a half miles in length and a mile in diameter. Now,
they really went overboard trying to impress us.
Yeah, well, that sure as hell impressed me. Sitchin also discovered that when Phobos 2 was in orbit around Mars, photographing Mars, that he discovered from Glavcosmos and the Russians a number of quote-unquote hot spots, which convinced Zacharias Sitchin that at one point Mars had been an extraterrestrial base or series of bases that were now reactivated. Now you're familiar with that, right?
Yes, I am. This is there's a long theme in science fiction which apparently was fed by the intelligence community, that yes, the UFO aliens had bases on the moon and probably bases on Mars. And that's because, Don, we're important in the scheme of things.
Okay, hold that thought, John. We are at the break time. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to pick up right there when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dark Matters Radio tonight. Once again, I have him back, a very dear friend of mine, a gentleman that I have interviewed many times. Why? Because he's so damned interesting. So stick around because, hey, we've got a heck of a lot more coming up. We'll be back.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking angioprim, the pain was gone and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free
at 945-882-7221.
You'll feel better with more energy.
That's 945-882-7221.
Or go to the website angioprim.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied, but you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Permanent industrial glue impossible to remove? Not anymore, because Handyman Formula by D-Bond is a patented chemical adhesive remover. It's used in the building and home maintenance industry, but now it's available for your home use, for your DIY projects. Unglue stickers, silicone rubber, labels, price tags, flex tape, weather stripping, carpet glue, wood glue, liquid nails, even 3M 5200. And it dissolves graffiti. Yeah, graffiti. Handyman Formula by D-Bond works, and it's safe to use on most surfaces. No need to call a professional. Don't get out the pliers and blowtorch. Just apply a little Handyman Formula by D-Bond and wait 90 seconds, then quickly and easily pull the items apart. Get unstuck. Visit debondhandymanformula.com. That's debondhandymanformula.com or call 561-575-4200. Handyman Formula by Debond.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRAradio.com.
And we're back with Dr. John Brandenburg. John, right before we had to go to break, you were talking about Earth's possible, as a host, to possible bases around the solar system. Do you want to pick up there?
Yep. Well, yeah, and this is why I write science fiction. If you look up an old movie called The Mysterians, it's made by the same outfit in Tokyo that made the Godzilla movies. And in 1958, I mean, the Sputnik had just launched. They came up with a really glitzy sci-fi movie in color called The Mysterians. And they had bases on the moon. They also had women being abducted by flying saucers, people in flying saucers, hybridization between humans and aliens, etc., etc. They had all this stuff. But one of the things I wanted to focus on is they had the aliens operating from bases on the moon because they were trying to conquer the Earth. And by extension, if let's just say, believe it or not, the human race is important in this galactic neighborhood, and people have come to this solar system and poured a lot of concrete, apparently, on the moon. And Mars is a natural staging area also for, if you want military bases to keep an eye on these pesky humans, you build them on Mars and on the moon. It's a science fiction scenario, but it's been around for a long time. Why, though, would they be, in your opinion, concerned about the human race militarily when apparently we're still occasionally having problems launching chemical rockets? Now, granted, we do have some fairly large, although probably by extraterrestrial standards, primitive big guns, nuclear devices, but unless you suggest or believe we may have much more advanced technology that's still being kept in the black. I think the human race is looked on sort of like the Klingons were in Star Trek. We're considered tough customers and not easily intimidated. And not only that, apparently, if you believe the reports, there are people out there who could pass for humans if you walked by them on the street. In fact, believe it or not, I was even asked in Washington, D.C. by one intelligence official if I had any ideas for how to recognize extremely humanoid aliens from the population. I said sniffer dogs. And he thanked me. He thought that was a really great idea. So they have specially trained canine units that are trained to pick out very humanoid aliens. Now, remember, let's say there are people out there reputed to be from the Pleiades, the Pleiadians. They have starships. They have all sorts of fancy stuff, just like Star Trek. We look just like them back there. They're our cousins due to shore leave, etc. The rest of the galaxy, if this was true, it's a science fiction scenario.
Now, is this a hypothesis?
This is a hypothesis. Let's say that there were people out there that we call the Pleiadians with all this advanced technology, And we look just like them. In fact, we look like their cousins or their illegitimate children. That means anybody else in the galaxy, when they look at the human race, they say, these are Pleiadians in the making. You know, these people are are going to be advanced and powerful someday, unless we try and get rid of them now. And but they haven't done that, obviously. So we are looked upon as people of destiny in the galaxy, I believe.
Okay, now back 20 plus years ago, when the first reports were coming out concerning the remote viewing program that the DIA, the CIA, and others at NSA were involved
and guess where that program was headquartered?
Where?
SRI.
Right. Yes. Stanford Research.
And guess where else? What other organization was headquartered there? The Mars investigation that I was part of.
Okay. All right. That's very, very
So they were
interesting.
just down the hall from us. I mean, we never, we weren't aware they were doing this stuff.
Well,
And
let me
we
get
found
back.
out
Let me get back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the remote
okay. I'm
viewing
sorry.
thing. I was absolutely fascinated with it, and another buddy of mine that had been in the magazine and well known, very well known, Jim Mars, who unfortunately passed a few years back. Jim
That was his real name too.
Yeah, Marrs. Jim
Yeah.
was somebody that really dug deep into that, and through Jim and others, I got to know and interview a number of those guys from the remote viewing program. And look,
Yep.
they were coming up with something, by God, because the DIA, CIA, and others wouldn't have kept financing them for over 20 years. And a dirty little secret, I'm convinced, is that it's still in existence, although deeply buried, probably in the bowels of no such agency, NSA.
Right.
But at any rate, a guy from that program, and I'm going somewhat out on a limb now. I believe it was Skip Atwater. At any rate, had conducted a number of remote viewing sessions trying to discover if there were any extraterrestrial bases on Earth. And he claimed he located 4 or 5 of them that were currently in operation right here on the planet. Now, when you talk, it may sound at first blush, when you talk about extraterrestrials who appear extremely humanoid, Homo sapien sapien humanoid, walking around among us, but that's not so far-fetched if Atwater and others were correct.
Yeah. It's just a fact of life that apparently the human race is not just on Earth.
Hey,
I got a question.
I got a question for you. When we were talking about the nuclear detonations on Mars, Libertas, one of our chat room users, has this question. Dr. Brandenburg, the isotopes you found, are they limited to just one particular area on Mars, or are they prevalent over a very wide area?
The answer is yes and yes. The xenon 129 I talk about, that's planetary wide because it's in the atmosphere, the gas. But there are areas on Mars, in fact, in the Mars meteorites, that show they have been heavily irradiated by neutrons. And they show this because they have specific isotopes for rocks that have been heavily irradiated by nuclear explosions. So some of the stuff can be seen from gamma ray emissions from satellites orbiting Mars, and they are located. That's how we figured out where the two explosion sites were in northern Mars. And then there are other places, there are other isotopes that are planetary wide.
Well, let's say for the sake of the discussion, we could get to Mars next year. We could send
that would
astronauts.
Be real nice.
Yeah, it would be, but we could send astronauts up there. Would they be in danger from that radiation? Now, Mars Mars is dangerous anyway. They don't have
Mars is dangerous anyway.
Yeah, they don't have an atmosphere that can block solar radiation like we do here. So there's always that danger. But from these
the cosmic rays that are stopped by the Earth's atmosphere because it's so thick come right down to the surface on Mars. So you're exposed to a lot more cosmic rays on Mars, and also solar flares. So you don't spend a lot of time running around on the surface of Mars in spacesuits if you're smart. You spend, you have basically underground bases with some nice skylights so that you feel like you have access to the outdoors. But trips to the surface in spacesuits are limited.
Now, it would be if let us say I were able to go to Mars, what I would really be interested in would be doing archaeological expeditions out on the surface and around some of those places to see what may be found there. What would you be limited to in exposure? Do you have any idea?
Well, just like people on Earth working with the radiation, they have dosimeter badges, and they measure, the badges record how much radiation they're exposed to during the day, and they have kind of a yearly dose they're allowed. But at the same time, some of these, the face on Mars, the pyramid on Mars, some of these look like they're massive structures full of tunnels probably, so you can go inside and gain a lot of archaeological knowledge safely underground. So it actually is a pretty cool setup for doing archaeology. You can do it safely, I believe, on Mars, as long as you restrict yourself to the tunnels inside.
Now, there's still a lot of chatter from NASA about, they may not have discovered life there. Of course, it would be extremely simple life, like lichens and so forth. But, I got to tell you, John, that
they're going to tease that question out for another decade, probably.
15 or 18 years ago, I knew for a solid fact that JPL had discovered water on Mars.
Yep.
Okay. I knew it. How did I know it? Well, at that time, I was very close friends with actor Dwight Schultz. And Dwight lived right down the street from a JPL scientist who told Schultz that this is around 2003, 2004, that they had discovered water, liquid running water. Now, I got to tell you, for the longest time, I waited for the public announcement that I was sure was going to be forthcoming. And you know what? I could never understand why that never happened. And I'll tell you why. Who always gets the budgetary axe whenever the government, of course, now you can't say that these days. I mean, we're pushing toward a $30 trillion debt in this country. And God help us all if that thing ever implodes. But, okay, at that time, NASA was always getting the axe. And if they would have made that announcement, water means what? Well, running water means the potential for life, because we know that from this planet and all the unbelievably hostile areas on this planet where one would never think there could be life or life that survives, there is. Well, same for Mars. But yet they held on to that like a June bride holds on to her secrets, John. Why?
I know. It's so frustrating. Part of it is the U.S. government has to deal with the fact that we're probably, of all the advanced industrial countries on earth, we're probably the most religious. And a lot of very strong Christians have not gotten past the idea of flesh and blood life on other planets. That's why I wrote my book, Cosmic Jesus, to explain that this did not contradict the Bible. In fact, it confirms the Bible. So, but the government...
John, there are really a lot of knuckleheads out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm afraid I do. I mean, looking at it
from a religious standpoint, that would only, if you're a strong believer in a deity, that would only show the deity to be capable of all things.
Yes, I know. And it does show it in the Bible. When Jesus tells his disciples to go out into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature, the word that's translated as world from the Greek is the word cosmos. And it means exactly now what it meant back in ancient times. The gospel was cosmic, is cosmic. Yes. So Jesus' mission on earth, his redemption, is cosmic. Look it up in the Bible. Well, you can look it up in my book, Cosmic Jesus. So, but most of the people who are very strong believers in Christianity, and I'm one of them. I'm just an Episcopalian, but I'm a strong believer, a strong Christian. They defer to their pastors of their churches, and the pastors of the churches say anything extraterrestrial, flesh and blood, is the work of the devil. That's what they're saying. So, Don.
My God, what a narrow-minded view. I was going to mention that especially fundamentalist sects see any of the UFO phenomena as definitely demonic. But wait a minute. Just like the Ginsu knives commercial, there's more. There was purportedly, out of the Pentagon, a group known as the Collins Elite, which was chronicled by researcher, writer Nick Redfern, who basically said there was a strong contingent in the Pentagon that believed that especially extra-dimensional entities, like at Skinwalker Ranch, were in fact demonic. Now, I don't know where I come down on all of that. I find it fascinating, of course, but I don't know.
Well, I remember having a conversation with a very nice Christian couple. They were, fundamentalist Christians. And I mentioned to them my work on Mars, and their reaction was extremely negative. This was, this was of the devil. And so I just just dropped the subject because I grew up in an area with a lot of fundamentalists in Oregon, Southern Oregon, and you just don't want to get in an argument with these people. It's a waste of time. So,
well, we had another question that popped right now
all right.
that zeroes in on that very thing. This is from ERRT Radio. That's our buddy Ron. And he said, does your faith and your science ever conflict with each other?
I went through a period in my 20s where I was raised as a Presbyterian. So kind of intellectual. And then my parents decided they were very unhappy with the Presbyterian Church, so they left it and became fundamentalists. And I, being the firstborn son, was very loyal to them, so I joined them in this new fundamentalist church. And I remember hearing from the pulpit that there was no life on other planets. And so I had to explore that myself using Bibles that showed the ancient Greek as well as the modern English translations. And finally, I went through a crisis. And then I discovered, no, the Bible talks apparently about extraterrestrial life and flesh and blood. And so there is no conflict at all. Apparently the mission of Christ, the mission of the church are cosmic. They are not.
Well, I've always considered that question of spiritual religious beliefs to be an intensely personal thing.
Yes.
And the way I've always dealt with it, if someone chooses to believe a certain way, if it works for them, hey, go for it with everything you got. I do that. That is something that I've never tried to have judgment on.
Don.
Only if it possibly could lead to harm of someone else because of fanatical belief. Now that's the only caveat that I've got. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that in the last 20 years.
We have, but my own belief is that the Judeo-Christian belief system is what made this country the way it is. It's a wonderful country. It's a good country. And when the time comes for people to accept this new idea, they will accept it.
Okay, we're real close to the top of the hour, John. So I've got another question that just popped in. This is from Eternal Being in the chat lounge. What kind of
Eternal Being?
Yeah, aerial foil system has the drone got, which will enable it to fly through the Martian atmosphere?
Well, the Martian atmosphere has much lower pressure than Earth, but it's actually its density, which is what enables it to, create flight, is the density. The carbon dioxide is much heavier than the oxygen and nitrogen of Earth's atmosphere. So even though the pressure of Mars' atmosphere is lower, its density, its grams per cc, is enough that it really helps. And so as a result, if you're clever, and I got to hand it to the people at Jet Propulsion Lab, they're extremely clever, you can make flight work. And they're going to demonstrate that. And so Mars is going to be the second place in the solar system where human flight technology is demonstrated.
Well, that's what a lot of people are really not very cognizant of, is it? That Mars, in fact, does have an atmosphere.
Yes, it does.
It's not breathable by humans, but it does have an atmosphere. And
it's got enough of an atmosphere to have dust devils.
Oh, yeah.
So
well,
there's
also,
aerodynamic what's that?
It also has an atmosphere that enables dust storms that can last for weeks and weeks and obscure the entire planet.
Oh, that's why the astronauts got together and signed a petition, which NASA management couldn't ignore, and the NASA, the astronauts said, we're not going to Mars without nuclear power. Because if you have a solar-powered Mars base, it can be shut down by a big global dust storm for 6 months.
Absolutely. John, I was going to say, we're at the top of the hour. We got to take that top of the hour break. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Dr. John Brandenburg, a longtime dear friend and a very knowledgeable guy, an actual, honest to God, rocket scientist, and one of the recognized Mars experts. We got another whole hour coming up when we get back. Stick around. Who knows where we're going to end up? We'll be back.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
For the thousands of wounded warriors returning from battle, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps wounded warriors translate their military experience to a civilian job. These extraordinary men and women bring more than just teamwork and inspiration to the workplace. They bring proven world-class job skills. And to ensure proper placement, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right job fit. Talented, skilled, and eager to get back to work, you have the opportunity to hire a seasoned veteran. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Hello, this is Commander Cobra of Task Force Griffin, KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. And I need you to be a member like myself of the People's Mosquito and help rebuild and fly this great aircraft. I have 3 friends here today also who are going to ask you the same thing. Consider becoming a member of the People's Mosquito.
Hello, I'm John Lilly. I'm the Managing Director of the People's Mosquito, and I'd like you to donate or support our flying program.
Hi, I'm Ross Sharp. I'm the Director of Engineering of the People's Mosquito, and I'd like you to help us rebuild this magnificent aircraft.
Hi, I'm Bill Ramsey. I'm the Operations Director and Tame Pilot of the People's Mosquito. I need you to join us and become my wingman.
Join all of us and be a supporter of the People's Mosquito program. Thanks.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of quarter-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRARadio.com.
And we are back with hour number 2 with Dr. John Brandenburg. John, what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm working at Kepler Aerospace in Midland, Texas. And we're a ambitious startup. We want to go to Mars.
Now you're working on a
Simple
propulsion. You're working on a propulsion system, right?
Oh, several. I work on the water-fueled MET thruster. Uses microwave, a vortex-stabilized microwave electrodeless discharge to superheat water vapor, so you can refuel it anywhere in the solar system, at Mars or even at Mercury, the Moon. And so that's one thing. We're also working on anti-gravity.
What is the potential speed you could get from something like that? Now, everybody has always suggested, depending upon where Mars is in conjunction with Earth, that it would take 6 months to a year to achieve Mars orbit. How quickly could your system get there?
Oh, I think we can get there in a week.
What?
We'll be able to eventually to achieve near light speeds with the controlled gravity.
With the system you're working on?
Yep. I mean, we're working on it theoretically. We were told not to work on it experimentally.
Why?
They didn't explain.
Well, the G-forces. Now, that's the thing that can turn an astronaut into strawberry jam on the bulkhead. How do you...
here's the nice thing. Here's the nice thing with controlled gravity modification drive. You fall to Mars. You don't actually speed up like a rifle bullet to go to Mars. You actually fall. That means you're effectively in a weightless state. You don't experience G-forces.
But that can still be deleterious to the human body, can it? Prolonged weightlessness?
Well, there's a number of little details that have to be worked out, Don.
Yeah, no kidding. I know just
as amazing
enough,
as it sounds.
I know just enough to be dangerous.
We know just enough about this to be dangerous, and until they let us do experiments with rats and stuff like that, we don't know what the effect of the electromagnetic fields are. They create the anti-gravity effects and et cetera, et cetera.
What are we looking at? 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, what?
Oh, I'd say 5 years. But I'm an optimist. I think in 5 years we'll have something operating. Now, I've heard talk that we may have some operating technology, never mind where we got it. Well, let me put it this way. I've heard two different versions of how we got this operating technology. One was we traded it to some Nazi SS people at the end of World War II for some plane tickets to Argentina. If that's true, you can understand why Uncle Sammy would not want to be talking about that. Then the other report I heard was that there was some visitors who suffered some unfortunate accidents at Earth. Unfortunate.
And we just happened to pick up their ride, huh?
Yeah. We just happened to have a bunch of Green Berets standing by in trucks when the crash occurred, and kind of claim salvage rights. It's our planet.
Now, can I tell you something that's bothered me for 50 years, John? 50 years.
Sure. Go ahead and tell me, John. Let me put on my psychiatrist cap. I'll take off my rocket scientist cap.
Here it is.
And I'll put on my bartender's cap.
Yeah. Well, that might even be better. I have for years been extremely irritated by the way people have kissed Werner von Braun's ass. Just talking about Werner von Braun. Can I finish, John? Let me finish.
Sure.
Werner von Braun, okay, the guy that quote-unquote got us to the moon, was a stone-cold Nazi SS colonel that utilized slave Jewish labor from the camps to do his Nazi rocket program. And then that guy was picked up in Operation Paperclip, brought to the United States, rehabilitated, and suddenly he was true blue American red, white, and blue. And you know what? That always irritated me that guy never paid for his crimes. And believe me, he committed crimes.
What they did after, what they did after we got to the moon? All of those German, Werner von Braun and a bunch of his other German buddies, they all worked in Huntsville, Alabama. And we'd gone to the moon. We beat the Russians to the moon, and everybody was happy. And then we heard disquieting reports that some of the people working for von Braun may have been involved in war crimes and things like that. So you know what the U.S. government did? They rounded them all up, put them in one room, asked them to count off by 42 or something like that. They took number 13 and said, you're a war criminal. We're sending you back to Germany and taking away your moon medal. End of story. Justice was served. So you can't say that Uncle Sammy didn't deal with this matter.
Yeah, not to my liking.
Oh, I had the displeasure of working with a German, former Nazi at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, and boy, this guy, I swear he had a classic German head made of granite, squared off on the edges, and all he could talk about was how much better the medical care was in Germany. I mean, prompting me to bite my tongue because I wanted to ask him, well, why don't you go back there then, you son of a bleep?
Well, why didn't you ask him?
I was just a young student, and he was a senior person. And we just shared a locker room where we go jogging. That's how that was the extent of my ever, talking to him. So,
well, the last time you were on the show,
politics makes strange bedfellows, and in the case of us, once the Cold War kicked into high gear, we needed people who knew how to do things, and we wanted to beat the Russians to the moon, and we weren't that particular who we worked with.
Yeah, weren't that particular with how we did it. Hey, let me ask you this. The last time you were on the show, you were talking about your unified field theory. Where are you at with that now, John?
It's moving along very nicely. What happened was the big goal was to unify gravity and electromagnetism, because that meant you could modify gravity fields with electromagnetism and, have our own flying saucers. Let's put it that way. What eventually happened was, so I had to unify gravity and E&M. And they're both long-range forces. Math is very similar between them. They satisfy what's called the inverse square law. Then what happened was a well-known scientist in the field named Eric Davis asked me at a conference, which turns out to unify E&M and gravity, you need to invoke a hidden dimension of a certain size, just a subatomic size dimension. And he asked, well, what particle corresponds to this hidden dimension size? Because of quantum mechanics, you'd expect a particle would pop out of the space-time that had just the right characteristics to fit into that hidden dimension. And I checked, and it was a well-known particle. And so this led to, there are four forces of nature. There's E&M and gravity, which are long-range forces, reach from one end of the universe to the other. Then there is the strong force and the weak force, and those are nuclear forces. They only have a range inside the nucleus or the atom. And as it turns out, I made the strange discovery that in unifying gravity and M, I'd also unified the strong and the weak force. So that all of this is written up in a book just called The Gem Unification Theory, and you can also look it up on the web. There's a lot of, I published a lot of stuff on it, Gem Unification Theory. And so I'm very interested in, as a scientist, in the strong and the weak force, and it may later help us to harness nuclear power without radioactivity. That would be really good. But mostly right now I'm concentrating on E&M and gravity.
Would that be called fusion?
That's it's funny. I haven't gotten any big insights on cold fusion, but that's mainly being driven experimentally. There's a fellow named George Miley. He's a retired professor from University of Illinois, Urbana. He's a brilliant nuclear physicist. And he showed me results of putting two electrodes into, I believe it was heavy water, and running electricity through them. They were nickel electrodes. And after a couple days, they took the pure nickel electrodes and chopped them open and looked inside. And there was every element from nickel all the way out to uranium. So I said to him, "You've done alchemy, which is the old idea from the Middle Ages of turning lead into gold, etc." He'd done it. And he said, "I know. Very strange. But unfortunately, we don't have a theory that helps us with it. Maybe my theory will help, but nothing has jumped off the paper to help with that, unfortunately."
Well, I have not heard anything concerning the Hadron Super Collider in Europe in a long time. Now,
why do you think we did not build that thing?
Well, here's my question. Now, I know for quite a while they were searching for something they called the God particle. Then I heard conflicting stories. I heard a story from one source that it was found, from another source that they're still looking for. What's the deal with that?
Okay. We were going to build a big super collider at a place called Waxahachie, Texas. But what happened is, this country went through science in this country went through a budget crunch, and some congressmen actually asked the scientists, "Well, why are we building this thing in Waxahachie?" And they'd say, "Well, we're going to find the God particle." And the scientist said, the congressman said, "You're going to find what?" And then they said, "Well, we're going to find the Higgs boson." And then the congressman sort of said, "Well, then what?" And the scientists didn't know. So what they did in the Large Hadron Collider in Europe is they built this thing to find the Higgs boson, and they found it. But they haven't found anything else. And there's nothing predicted.
Then what? Then what? They found it. Now what? let me ask you.
Well, it's kind of a one-trick. It's a one-trick pony now.
Let me ask you a very stupid question. What good is it?
Well, the question can be legitimate. That question can be legitimately asked, and is being asked in the European Parliament. Why did we spend all this money to find one damn particle? And I got a funny story though. I talked to this lady. She was from India. She's originally from India. She was really quite attractive, so that's why I was talking to her. And anyway, she was over at the Large Hadron Collider. She was working there, and the project management kept issuing these memos and press releases, God particle this, God particle that. And the scientists working on it hated that name. They said, "It's not a God particle, it's just a particle. You put it in a bottle and worship it if you want to. It's not God. It's just a subatomic particle like hydrogen." So anyway, they keep talking, but anyway, the management liked it because it got good press, in France, where the people are a bunch of atheists anyway. So they turn on the thing the first time, they burn out all these magnets, and it's a catastrophe. They melted down half the magnets in the system on the first day. And let me tell you something, John. I'm a plasma physicist. I've run a lot of experiments, including some pretty big experiments ones. And let me tell you, if you're running a big experiment in a laboratory, the last person you want to get mad at you is God. Because there's so many things that can go wrong in a big experiment. And so what happened is they turned this thing on, melted down half of it. They lost 100 tons of helium into the air because the helium was trying to cool the magnets while they were melting down. So the memo went out the next day, she said, No one can refer to this thing as the God particle anymore. It's the Higgs boson. So somebody got the fear of God. They put the fear of God into a bunch of Frenchmen running this experiment.
What caused the magnets to melt?
Well, they're what's called a superconducting state. They're carrying all this electricity, but there's no resistance. So they can generate very powerful magnetic fields from small magnets. The problem is if you don't run things right, the magnets they're in what's called superconducting state, no resistance. Suddenly they go normal, and they have resistance, and they pop like old World War II fuses.
Oh, the damage!
I remember growing up in Medford, Oregon, and several drunken parties. I remember these old World War. They always seemed like old World War II veterans were out in the back, popping pennies into the fuse boxes because they'd run out of fuses, and so they'd put pennies in there.
Wow.
And risks burning down the house, Well, hey, this is the 60s, I'm sitting there holding a beer watching this, thinking this isn't a good idea. But the guy who's doing it looks like he knows what he's doing. He's somebody's uncle. Hey, this guy's a good man. He's somebody's uncle who went down and bought all our beer for us. So anyway, so they built this thing, and they finally got it running. And they quit calling it the God particle because they knew that made somebody annoyed. And then they found the Higgs boson. They haven't found anything important since.
What was the theory that this particle might be, John?
Excuse me. Well, it was worked out by a number of people, but the most prominent one was this guy named Higgs. And so, it was the idea that the particle, it's the quantum, think of it as Schrodinger's cat that chases all the mice and keeps them in their holes. That's basically what it does. Gives all of the mice mass. And so.
Well, that stuff is so esoteric that sometimes I got to tell you, I've thought about this. Now, let's, for example, drop back to purportedly what has been happening at the so-called Skinwalker Ranch in Utah.
Yeah.
And a couple of other areas around the nation where allegedly similar activities have happened.
Don, ask me if I've ever been to Skinwalker Ranch.
John, have you ever been to Skinwalker Ranch?
Hell no. Ask me if I'm planning on going there.
John, do you ever plan to go out to the Skinwalker Ranch?
Hell no. As I told some people who've been out there, I said, as a scientist, the only way to learn something about something, if you really want to learn something by studying something, you got to be smarter than the thing you're studying. Otherwise, it's studying you. And I concluded that whatever is operating out of Skinwalker Ranch is smarter than human beings, and therefore I would just stay the hell away from there. Pardon my French.
Well, years ago, when Colin Kellner and George Knapp came out with their book on Skinwalker Ranch, Vicki and I traveled over to Las Vegas and had dinner with Knapp and spent an evening with him, and I all but begged him to intercede with Robert Bigelow, to allow me to go out and spend a couple of days. And Bigelow, for whatever reason, said no. At least this is what Knapp told me. So, in hindsight, you know what? I'm very happy I was
Oh,
never.
yes, you should be, Don, because you're a smart guy. You know, there's the old expression, you know, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And you're talking to somebody who's been known to rush in where even a fool knows where not to tread. So, and
what?
this is just a situation where if you don't know what you're dealing with and it's dangerous, you stay the hell out of there.
If you had to guess what might be happening out there, and this is pure speculation, nobody's going to hold you to it, but what right now would you guess may be going on there?
Well, it appears, as a scientist who works on unified field theory, that it's some place where there's some kind of dimensional transition going on, that it's an easy place to cross into other dimensions for some reason. It could be, you know, the locale, the geomagnetic fields, et cetera, et cetera. So, unfortunately, it's really easy. And you know, and I'm just an Episcopalian. I'm a Christian, and it's like, why don't I go to seances? You know, why don't I go to visit witchcraft gatherings? I got no interest in that. It's there. I'm here, and that's the way it's going to stay.
You don't poke the bear. In other
way
words,
over
right?
your head when you start dealing with that stuff.
You don't poke the bear.
Absolutely. You don't poke the bear. And you know, it's a testament to the fact that people can be really smart and have PhDs and still be stupid, as dumb as rocks when it comes to stuff like this. You just stay clear.
Well, now you know a guy that was out there working on the ranch doing some extensive research. As a matter of fact, you gave me his contact information, and I tried to contact him. You told him I was going to be contacting him.
Yes, and, I know.
He kind of shined me on, but the guy got irradiated apparently out there. Do you want to talk about that?
Based on the accounts I heard, he got a severe enough dose of radiation that you know, he basically barely avoided ending up in the hospital. And I told him,
he was not around anything that was apparently nuclear powered, was he?
No. And the people standing next to him didn't get any radiation dose, apparently. So they were, whatever force was operating out there was making an example out of him. And I told him, I said, just don't ever go back there. He's married, got a lovely wife. I just said, don't go back there. Stay away from that place. You're not going to, what are you going to learn except that the universe is weirder than we imagined? That's what you're going to learn there. And I already know that.
Yeah, and I've never encountered myself anything close to that, but in my lifetime,
well, I have.
I've experienced some weird things, but when you're talking about something like that, well, quite frankly, I find that terrifying.
That's life-threatening. I pray to God that he doesn't suffer any long-lasting health effects, getting leukemia or something like that out of this. But yeah, there's certain things. I mean, we're somewhere there's a graph, and it graphs some kind of intelligence and psychic ability, and the human race is on that graph someplace, and there are other beings that are higher, much higher than that, than humans, and I think that's what we're dealing with. And I just say, don't deal with it. I'm not going to go swimming with a grizzly bear in Alaska and see if the salmon run is happening. And I'm not going to go to that ranch.
Well, I'm here in sunny Southern California. We've got our own share of weirdness that we deal with. You lived here, you know what I'm talking about. But guess what? Yesterday, my wife had to go over to the park that's literally across the road from us. And she was meeting a lady over there. And my wife encountered a coyote. Then she encountered several deer. The lady that she met came up, all shaken up. And Vicky said to her, what's wrong? And she said, my God, a mountain lion just crossed in front of me. So,
well, they're all being driven out of the upper elevations by the fires.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a good time to go hiking in the woods,
No, it is not. And, I had a mountain lion.
And if you spot these little bear cubs on the trail, don't go up and talk to them.
No, stay away.
The mama bear is someplace close by and will want to talk to you.
Yes. And a few years ago, I had a mountain lion come up on my backyard wall looking for a doggy dinner. And,
sure. Hot dog.
I gotta tell you, I was less than fully happy with that. Those damn things. And I was, when
those things are dangerous.
When Vicky told me about her friend, the lady that just ran across that, I said, there's something in our DNA as a human being. Our ancestors encountered those things, mountain lions, pumas, saber-toothed cats, all that kind of stuff a long time ago, but it stuck with us. And I said that day that the mountain lion was on our back wall, and I was inside, I saw it from a window, and I could just feel my insides go wiggy,
Oh, you're lucky it wasn't at night.
Oh, my
when
God,
it could see you just like broad daylight, and you couldn't see it at all.
Yeah, they can be a bad problem on a good day.
The worst enemy of the human race before we invented the fire, we invented this great invention, fire, was the leopard. Apparently, because the leopards can see much better at night than we can, and they liked people.
And then we invented the 30-06. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we invented fire first, and then
the 30-06, yes.
The 30-06 came along and kind of evened things up. Suddenly, we liked leopard capes.
Hey, let me ask you, John, the last time we were on, and I mentioned, back in December 2017, Harry Reid coming forward and discussing having secured financing for a UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Research Project at the Pentagon, ATIP, and all of that business. Now, I studiously keep my ears open every day to hear if there's any other official type information coming out. Have you heard anything in the pipeline about any of that?
I will just simply say that I think we're dealing with a timed information release. I also talked to one investigator, and whom I know is well placed in the government, and I said, Bill, I said, I have a theory that maybe this fact that the government has decided to talk about this has to do with something has gone south, that we have a crisis in outer space dealing with these things. And this guy just looks at me for like 35 seconds roughly. Like he doesn't know what to say. And then he finally says to me, John, that's a really interesting theory. So I think the U.S. government is starting to talk about this stuff, not out of the goodness of their heart, or that the fact that they woke up at 3 a.m. and said, we should tell the American public more of what we know. No, these are not the reasons. They feel like they have to be ready to bring the public up to speed in case they have an Independence Day scenario. Now, remember, it's been roughly 80 years since Roswell. There's been some unpleasantries. We know that. Those are the reports. But other than that, things have gone pretty well. I mean,
well, publicly.
So let's just say that I think we'll be fine. And but it could be that the government is worried that it's got, one of the pots on the top of the stove is boiling over, and they have to move it to a different burner. And in the meantime, they have to have a contingency plan to bring the public up to speed.
Well, now,
and so that's what they're doing.
28 years ago, when Vicki and I were still publishing UFO magazine.
Yeah.
We had
wonderful publication, by the way.
Thank you. We had a reporter, and he was a friend of mine, Paul Stonehill, who was born in the former Soviet Union, had somehow gotten out. His family and he had gotten out, and he was in Europe for a while. Then he went down to South Africa, where he was a reporter, and finally emigrated to the United States. Now, Paul had been fascinated by this subject ever since when he was a kid. He had met an old Siberian bush pilot, and the bush pilot had told him about an encounter he had with a UFO when he was flying one time. Yep. Well, that basically put Paul on the track for, oh my God, for I guess the rest of his time. He's still around. I haven't talked to Paul in a long time, but
sure.
But he's still around, and he had been following this. He knew a lot of the top and had been in communication with a lot of the top researchers in Russia, especially after the Iron Curtain collapsed. And he wrote a series of articles for us that demonstrated what appeared to be hostility on the part of at least some of these visitors. Now, I'll never forget one article where he had written for the magazine, which detailed what appeared to be an aerial conflict in the skies of Siberia between different groups of unidentified flying objects shooting at each other. Another article he had written.
We don't know the details of this, but apparently somebody is having an argument.
Exactly. Then he had written another article where I think it was a lake named Vostok. I think it was Lake Vostok, where Soviet Spetsnaz Special Forces divers were down in this lake looking for something, and they encountered humanoid beings under the water.
Yep. I heard about that.
Yeah, they got into some kind of tussle with them, and whoever those other humanoid beings were knocked the hell out of these guys. They even had some fatalities. Now,
them Russians, them boys can fight. We know that, and it's not an accident that the first human being in space was a Russian fighter pilot.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, when it comes to rough and tumble, they can get very rough and tumble. But apparently, whoever they encountered was really rough and tumble. Then, not because I broke the story.
How deep was this? It was like 100 feet down in this ice cold lake, artificial lights, and you encounter some humanoids down there. And what do these Russians do? They get in a fight with them. That's not something the Americans would do.
Well, it didn't work out well for them. Then you had the STS-48 case that I detailed, and there was a UFO, UAP, a bogey, whatever it was, and somebody was shooting at it. Now,
yep.
I think I mentioned
here. I'll tell you the story I heard when I was in Washington D.C. was that the U.S. government, tried to make nice with various UFO groups to try and get as much information, technology as they could from them, but just as a general policy, they tried to. Kind of sort of, well, what do you guys want? And
we didn't want to go out of our way to piss them off, right?
Right. And the Russians, on the other hand, if they saw anything unidentified flying over their territory, they assumed it was American. This is the Cold War. They assumed it was a U-2 or SR-71 or something. And they would scramble the MiGs and roll out the surface-to-air missiles. And finally, after losing a lot of MiGs and expending a lot of missiles, they finally got one. And it crashed somewhere in the woods in Siberia. And the Russian internal security people, the KGB troops, who looked just like the Russian army, except their insignias were slightly different. They show up at the crash site and they, pull out the big Russian Krobarsky and pry open the hatch on this thing. They look inside and yet Amerikansky. These people aren't American.
Well,
so the Russians got off on really the wrong foot with the aliens from outer space, and we should be grateful.
Well, back in 91, I met retired Soviet Air Force Colonel Dr. Marina Popovich.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 days with her down in Arizona. She was at a conference, and I had a chance to extensively interview her through an interpreter. Sure. And she wasn't speaking very much English. And as a matter of fact, I even got her on American TV on hard copy when she came to L.A. But anyway, talking to her about a lot of stuff. Now, she had some fascinating things to say. Now, was it real?
I'll bet she did.
Was it real? I'm kind of presuming she wasn't BS.
Well, this is the Rush. How can you tell when the Russians are shading the truth? Because the lips are moving.
That's true. But here's what she told me on 2 things. Number one, when she was over here, it was to talk about UFOs. and Soviet, encounters with UFOs. By then, the Iron Curtain had collapsed, but she was talking about when the Russians were still the Soviet Union. And she told me they lost a lot of MiGs and pilots.
I know. I heard the same thing.
And then when I asked her...
They did hand out a lot of medals.
When I asked her about Phobos 2, the Phobos 2 encounter in Mars, number one, at first, she was shocked that I knew about that I knew anything about that. Okay? And then she told me something, and I wrote it up. I wrote an article for then Omni magazine. And boy, I'll tell you, they paid me a nice fee for that. And then
That's right.
They didn't run it. Okay? They didn't run it.
They went and talked to their minders.
Here's why they may not have run it. Because back in those days, President George H.W. Bush, the old man, was president. Now,
CIA.
He was formerly, director of CIA. You may or may not recall that he met with Secretary General Gorbachev over in Malta. And at the time that he met with Gorbachev, he went over to Gorbachev's yacht in a small boat during a very intense storm.
They all got seasick.
And he got a lot of criticism from the press for going over to Gorbachev's yacht. Now, according to Marina Popovich, the reason he went over there was to, guess what? Talk about the Phobos 2 incident where this gigantic spacecraft was photographed by their Phobos 2 probe and then rammed.
It was bigger than the moon Phobos.
The damn thing rammed the probe and destroyed it. Now that's without question because it happened. Even Glav Cosmos said something impacted their space probe and destroyed it. But she said Bush went over to talk to Gorbachev about this incident. Now, is that possibly why? I called the White House, John. I talked to the press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, and I asked him about this. And you know what he did? He busted up laughing, okay? But this is what Popovich told me. And of course, I never expected anybody would admit it, but it was very unusual, I thought, of Marlin Fitzwater's response to my question. So anyway.
Well, it's that probe actually, the Phobos probe carried a very high energy laser.
Yes.
And a high energy ion beam. So it was a directed energy experiment as well as a space probe.
And the craft, if in fact that's what it was, may have seen that as a threat.
Yep. Oh, yes. Well, you may have heard of the incident at Detlev Pass.
Yes.
In Russia.
Yes, of course.
That was kind of the mid-'60s. That looks like
that was in the 50s.
Yeah, well, it looks like it was payback to the Russians for, they lost a bunch of MiGs and they brought down some UFOs, and the UFO aliens were not happy with the Russians.
Well, I just saw a documentary on one of the science channels on TV, a month or so ago. And I was kind of curious because it was about the Detlev Pass. Now, apparently...
Yeah, that was classic human mutilation like some of the animal mutilations.
Well, apparently, one of those dead hikers had taken some photographs, and they found one. Now, you couldn't really tell exactly what this humanoid figure was, but they suggested it might have been a Sasquatch type animal or creature or being. Okay. But
well,
also they have been sighted in vicinities of where UFOs have come down. So it's hard to say.
It's what do you call it when? Well, it's in the Russians have a term called maskarova, where you deliberately throw extraneous data into a situation to confuse everyone.
Right.
And the aliens are masters of this. So those poor people.
Well, whatever it was, tore them apart.
It tore them apart, limb from limb. And you had to imagine that this, to me, this was payback. That's my interpretation. Here's this very isolated group of hikers up in the wilderness, and they were deliberately targeted and all killed. And it was a message to the Soviet government, to back off.
Well, they had that under military security for decades.
There's a good, good reason you never heard anything about that incident until long after the Cold War was over.
Well, it's one of those things. John, we're coming up on the end of the show here in about a minute and a half.
Hey, Don, it's always a pleasure and honor to be on your show.
Well, it's great.
I just wanted to mention in passing one last thing related to this Mars thing. We've now found Mars xenon signature in the open literature in meteorites. And these meteorites are interpreted as containing the residues of the supernova that form the solar system. And one of them also is this comet, 6P Cherniev, where they landed. It's got Mars Xenon 129. It matches Mars. Basically, we're looking at supernova residues, and the whole meteoritic community knows that this matches Mars, but they won't talk about it.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, that is fodder for the next time you're on the show. We are out of time. We're out of time. John, it's been great. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Stay away from Detlef Pass, Don.
Yes, I have no
and
intention.
Stay away from a certain ranch, okay?
We'll be back next week, next Friday, with another edition of Dark Matters Radio. That's it for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend, and we'll see you then. Good night, John.
God bless you.
Good night,
Don.
all.